Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AHA Reality Check, a co-presentation of Making the Shift to Online Qual, the New Paradigm. Before we get started, I just want to mention this will be about a 40-minute presentation with plenty of time for Q&A. You can find the Q&A in your control panel at the bottom. We always get great questions, and we're going to try to answer them all. And we will answer some as we go along as well. Let me make a few quick introductions. Many of you already know Ray Fischer. He's the CEO of AHA Insights Technology. Ray, in his role as a brand marketer, ad agency guy, consumer insight strategist, has really experienced firsthand the impact of technology on consumer and market research. Ray and his team developed and launched their first online tool back in 2007. And 13 years later, it's one of the most comprehensive suite of tools and activities in the marketplace. Really allows insight strategists like yourself to easily create and deploy engaging consumer or B2B studies. Joining Ray is Jim White. He's the co-founder and insight strategist at RealityCheck. Jim's an early adopter of online qual and has collaborated with Ray over the years to help kind of bring new innovations to life on the AHA platform, as many of the clients have. His firm really focuses on human insights approach to market research. He's conducted thousands of studies for Fortune 500 companies using both traditional and online qual methods. So Jim's here to talk about his successful experience with online qual. So with that, here are Ray and Jim.
Hey, thank you very much, Bill. This is Ray from snowy Detroit. Hello, everyone, old friends and new friends. Hey, thanks for being here. We really hope everyone is doing at least okay in today's environment. It seems like yesterday, many of us were in Brooklyn, mildly nervous about what was to come and hand sanitizing like crazy. So much has changed in the past 6 weeks in business and in our lives. And again, we hope everyone's doing well. Today, Jim and I hope to leave you with a broad but practical understanding of how online qual has evolved and what's now available in terms of features and functionality, as well as some guidelines for conducting successful online qual studies. Now, whatever your experience level is with online qual, whether you're thinking about conducting your first study, or you're a seasoned pro, or whether you're a corporate insights director or manager or research supplier, we think you'll find some things in today's webinar that will be useful and we hope thought-provoking.
Well, I'm not coming to you from frozen Detroit. I'm in sunny Louisville, Kentucky.
Lucky man.
Much better down here, yeah. So hope everyone's doing well on the call, and thanks for attending. I mean, obviously we're all here, and the timing of this webinar is being driven by the coronavirus crisis. And certainly we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of online qualitative studies that are happening right now. So there are a lot of new folks coming into the online qual world or thinking about doing online qualitative studies. And then a lot of the more experienced folks out there are doing more and more studies as a replacement for the face-to-face qualitative that just can't be done right now. But Ray and I really hope that coming out of this, you'll be convinced that online qualitative isn't just a replacement for face-to-face qualitative, that it really is a different thing, and that you'll add it to your arsenal of methodologies, even when we're in a post-COVID-19 world, which we all hope will be really soon. I mean, I would say right now, RealityCheck, before the coronavirus crisis, we were doing about 50% of our qualitative projects digitally. And even a lot of our face-to-face projects now involve a digital component, either before or after face-to-face field work. So we hope you find enough here that's interesting, that will suit you now, but also in the future when it comes to online qualitative.
Thanks, Jim. All right, so why we're here today, essentially what I want to do is go through a lot of different things that we're going to cover. So I want to show you our goals and see what you can apply to what you do now, and as well as things you're going to do in the future. So I'll go over our kind of top objectives for today. And the main one here is to expand your awareness of the opportunities that are available to you. Many of you know those, but many of you don't. And this will be a chance for us to kind of share some of our best practice approaches, over the course of the last 15 years. What we also want to do is share with you how to leverage the technology. There's been a lot of changes that have happened. Even us using Zoom today is a big deal. Really wasn't around a couple of years ago. We all had GoToMeeting, et cetera. Our smartphones are now going to 5G. So the technology has evolved tremendously. We want to share with you how to leverage that to get better market research. We'll also share best practices for optimizing different methods. There's a lot of different approaches that are available to you, many that are known, many that are custom, and many that have not even been thought up yet. So hopefully we can inspire people to new heights. We also want to share how you use different tactics to get deeper insights. You know, this whole online versus face-to-face thing, it's been going on for a while. Obviously, a lot of the face-to-face can be done online, but we want to show how the techniques that we have that we use online can help you get deeper insights than you could in face-to-face traditional methods. And also we want to add to your portfolio of tools to give you more options. So you guys know the things you can do based on the objectives of your clients and whatever the needs are of maybe your brand teams as well.
Yeah, now before Ray and I get into some of the details of kind of feature and functionality and methods, I wanted to talk about a few just key principles, higher level principles that I've learned. We first started doing online studies, digital qualitative 15 years ago at RealityCheck. And over the time, we've made a lot of mistakes. We've gotten a lot wrong, but we've learned a lot of things and we get a lot right now. But it's been an interesting learning experience with the evolution of online qualitative. And a couple of things that helps me as a research consultant are to think about online qualitative first and foremost as its own animal. If you're just thinking of it as taking a face-to-face methodology and putting it online, you'll probably be disappointed. Your clients, if you're a research vendor, will probably be disappointed. If you're a client-side insights person, your brand team will probably be disappointed. But if you think of it as its own animal and you think of it through the full research process that way, designing studies specifically for the digital qualitative experience, making sure you're conducting your field work that way, which gets to how you moderate these studies, and then really, perhaps most importantly, how you analyze online qualitative data on the back end. All of those things are different. They're different than face-to-face, but if you approach them the right way, you're going to get more out of online qualitative. You're going to get a greater level of depth and be just overall more successful. So thinking beyond merely taking face-to-face and putting it online, I think is critical here. And that requires a little creativity. And it requires also thinking about engagement in a different way, not only with respondents, but also with the client teams. On the client side, not really insights people as much, but those brand teams that are used to observing face-to-face qualitative have to understand that the online qualitative experience is different. But with that, there's a lot of different ways to engage client teams, just like there are different ways to engage respondents. And all of that's critical to understand. So if you approach online qual with these three key principles in mind, you're much more likely to tee up yourself for success. Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Jim. All right, moving on to this next slide. Okay, I don't want to make this an online commercial for AHA, but I do want to cover some of the key features that we do have so you kind of understand some of the possibilities that we will refer to as we go through the course of this webinar. So some of the things that we have, we're really well known for something we've done since the inception of the platform, and that is our projective techniques. And those are kind of highlighted here by what we call our dynamic canvas, which involves our collage tool. And then the dynamic canvas has really been the evolution of that collage into many other things. One of the cool things it can be applied to is journey mapping and all kinds of group sort exercises. And the dynamic nature of the canvas truly is the ability to kind of do anything you want short of teleportation. So text and images and fields and respondents being able to design different things from their world with the tools that you give them truly creates a dynamic experience and can be used, in its pure projective nature when it's used as a collage. And by the way, collage is used in probably 90% of all the studies we do. So very powerful tool, very well accepted by the users of our platform, and a very great research tool for you to be able to deploy to get deeper into the mindset and the psychology of your respondents. Social activities, also very powerful. A lot of our activities are one-to-one, which means they're kind of private between the moderator and the respondent. The social activities are really social media-based exercises that allow respondents in a study to strategically share, pictures, videos, text, whatever it might happen to be, and also to like and comment on each other's stuff, again, just like you're in social media. Our tools actually reflect very much, one of them is very much like Pinterest, and it's called Pinboard. Another one is a sentence completion tool in the social media format that we call Wishing Wall. And the third is what we call Newsfeed, which basically mimics Facebook's Newsfeed. So those are the collaborative and what we call strategic sharing tools we have. The other projective technique that's very popular is storytelling. And the genesis of that is very simple. Back in the old days, we used to ask open-ended questions. Hey, tell us a story about X, Y, Z, and people would give us 2 sentences. We gave them a real creative format, creative font, loose leaf background, guidelines, etc., and really supercharged that into, an exercise where we went from a couple of sentences around storytelling to a couple of pages. So that's a very cool and very heavily used tool as well. Our video tools, as you see over here, they're used in almost every occasion you could imagine. A lot of stuff in the house, take me to your pantry, and also a lot of things, mobile missions, going to the store, walking the cereal aisle, reporting back, either live or recorded, back to the mothership. Okay. We have transcription associated with those as well, and we do translation. I know there's a lot of international people on this presentation today, and we do have translation tools built into the platform that relate to everything that's asynchronous and also the live stuff as well. Okay. And there's also editing capabilities on the platform with the video, so you can create little video clips, highlight reels of the things that you have that you want to portray to your clients and support the themes that you learn in the course of your study. This next one here, concept exposure. The concept testing tools we have that you see right here are dramatic. We've got some very cool stuff. Obviously, we can show anything static or in video. We have concept rotation, a tool that's unique to us that we call true rotation. And we've also got a markup and heat map tool that plays off of that. So some of our techniques in that concept testing zone allow you to kind of use different tools, multiple tools, or single tools that just get, deep qualitative reaction to whatever ideas you're trying to expose. And just a quick little note on our true rotation tool. A lot of you guys out there have dealt with multiple concepts. And if you see something like, 6 to 9 concepts coming from your brand team or coming from your agency, and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to test 6 to 9 concepts? How do we work with that? Our approach to that is we use our true rotation tool, which allows you to balance the, let's use 9 ideas over 3 days perfectly. So they'll show up in the 1 through 9 position. The other really nice thing that happens there too is while you're able to rotate these ideas in equal fashion, we like to spread them out so that we don't expose any more than 2 or 3 per day. Because once they get past that second or third concept, something that we call fatigue and blur set in. After you see 2 or 3 concepts, people start to write less and less. And if you show them 5, for instance, they start referring back to the second one when they're looking at the 5th. So true rotation and the way that we approach that from a best practice standpoint allows us to get a really cool, clean exposure of ideas each individual day. So people are rested, fresh, and giving you their best on each idea. And then finally, over here on the right side, relative to the Zoom concept I mentioned earlier in my intro, was we became the first worldwide integrated channel partner of Zoom last May. So that was quite fortuitous because in today's world, obviously webcam IDIs are very, very popular. So we were in a great position to have had that product embedded into our platform over the last 9 or 10 months, 11 months now. So we're able to do webcam IDIs on the platform, very popular. There's way more features beyond these particular ones that I'm showing you here right now. Our website is a great place to go look at those and see little explanations about all of them. And really the beauty of how we do things, depending on the objectives of the client, is we weave a tapestry together of all these different tools over the course of a study, short-term or long-term, to keep respondents super engaged because things are unique and different. But most importantly, they're unique and different so that you can get deeper, richer insights from your respondents.
Hey, Ray, usually when I use the dynamic canvas for collage building, I'm doing it in on a one-on-one basis. Mm-hmm. But we've got a question from somebody asking if it can be done as a group or just in a one-on-one type approach. And I don't know, because I've never used it in a group setting. Can the dynamic canvas be used in sort of a group setting as well?
You know, it could be, but it would probably be a little bit messy. If it was done in a group format, it would be people kind of agreeing to pick different images to put onto the canvas. But I think the interesting thing, or the best method there, Jim, is that respondents oftentimes, you know, design-wise, the study can be set up so that respondents do a collage independent of everyone else, and then they're shared over to our news feed so that people are actually able to see everyone else's collages and then like, comment, react, etc. to those.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I do sort of group collages, because what I will do, if you use the projective imagery that's loaded into the AHA library, and there's hundreds of images in there, I'll use them to have people express or develop collages to represent emotions and that sort of thing, you know, projective technique. The platform, let's say you have 30 or 40 individual collages, the platform can then create, sort of tally those up and create a composite collage of the most frequently chosen images from the library. So you can get that as sort of a group, a grouping collages in the analysis. So hopefully that answers the question.
All right, good ad lib there, Jim. I appreciate that. All right, on this next page, what we want to do is talk about the, you know, the top uses of, you know, online, or top uses or methods used in online scenarios. So really, I mean, there's probably, I could easily list out 30, but these are the top 10 that are used on the platform. So I'll start at the top and kind of talk a little bit about each of these. Again, these are fairly common outside of, you know, some of these are common outside of online, but we have taken them digital. And the biggest one and most popular one is what we call digital ethnography. And you guys know, in the old days, you know, people would take a cameraman and 4 clients and 2 researchers into somebody's house, which creates a really weird environment. The person typically is on stage, et cetera. And what we're able to do online is actually do the digital ethnos, so they're on their own. They're solo, whether it requires video or not. All those things can be embedded over the course of a 3, 4, or 5-day study. So the idea there is, if you're really trying to understand the psychology and buyer motivations and category feelings that respondents have relative to whatever good product or service is being tested, those digital ethnos allow you to do different types of activities for those 3 or 4 or 5 days. So every day they're doing something different. Day 1 might be getting to know you. Day 2 might be all around, you know, the competitive environment. Day 3 may be something where you do projective techniques, maybe a collage and or storytelling. And day 4 could be, hey, we've got some concept ideas we want to share with you guys. Maybe you got 2 or 3 positioning arenas that you want to get some reaction to, and those can be exposed as well. And you can even drop in, let's say on a day 5, a store trip, you know, to go shop the cereal aisle while recording and narrating whatever that action is in the aisle itself. So you have that perfect opportunity to dive in using different techniques, and again, weaving a tapestry of different things that get at the buyer motivations, the psychology and attitudes of respondents. Another real popular method I mentioned earlier is concept testing. And again, our true rotation tool is very popular out there for getting complete balance of exposure of ideas. That is used, you know, all the time as part of a digital ethnography, for instance, or also used on its own, where it's just a pure concept testing study. Another thing we've done a lot of in the last few years is home use testing, whether it's, you know, chewing gum, where people, you know, chew gum for the course of a week and report back every time they've had a chewing experience, or it could be something like vacuum studies that we've done for the last couple of years for a large manufacturer, where respondents are actually shipped vacuum cleaners and they report over the course of a couple months via video and diaries and opening the box when they first get it to the conclusion of the study, where they might review the product and give all the feedback, positive and negative, to the product developers about what they liked or didn't like about that vacuum cleaner. So home use tests are very, very popular and very, very easy to execute online. Another really hot area is customer experience journeys. And these tend to be longitudinal studies that can go, you know, usually at least 3 months, sometimes a year, and often those year-long studies get renewed so they go on for multiple years. The beauty of that is you have a couple different approaches to that you can execute. One is to custom recruit. Obviously expensive to do it that way, but, you know, let's say if you have 200 people or so and you engage them a couple times a month, you know, some of these things can be set activities where there might be a journal or diary entry they make about any interactions with that good product or service over that period of time. but some of these can also be ad hoc. Like for instance, if you had a customer experience study going right now in this COVID environment, you'd have the opportunity to drop in activities right now, every week of this particular little lockdown we're all in, and have people report back on how they think and how they feel. Could be just about them in general, but also specific to the products that the manufacturer is actually selling or marketing. So the customer experience journeys are very, very popular. Again, they can use all the tools in the study, and again, they tend to go longer range. Now, I mentioned custom recruiting for those. Another really cool way we've done with a lot of customers is they come to us and say, hey, we've got a database of 10,000 people. And what we'll do is we say, okay, we'll house those people for you. So we import all those people into our platform, and they're segmented, and there's all the demographic information necessary. And manufacturers and brand teams can actually parse out different activities and different pulse points, ad hoc activities and set activities over a period of time to gather information that changes in this ever-changing environment. The next thing that's gotten red hot for us is webcam IDIs. We were not in this business officially until May of last year, and we are all in at this point in time, as you guys can imagine, and we're pretty much close to capacity. So webcam IDIs are huge. Webcam IDIs are also used as a part of any of these particular methods here. But let's say for a digital ethno, a lot of times you may have 40 people in a study and they might have a 4-day run of activities, 30 minutes a day. At the end of those 4 days, what you have the opportunity to do within the platform with webcam IDIs is pick your 10 or 12 best respondents. So you'll know who they are. So you may have 6 from segment A and 6 from segment B, and you'll do 35 to 60-minute webcam IDIs, just one-on-ones, and dive deeper and really get to know these people better. So that 4 days that you have them on, and some of those they'll have done some asynchronous video, so you'll know who's really got it, who may be telegenic, might give you the best, feedback and the best media for you to then incorporate into your study to underscore the themes that you want to present back to your client in your final report. Another one is mobile missions, and those can be built into anything, but that's typically store trips, or maybe it's, moms with little kids and they feed them snacks and you want to have them do kind of a video diary entry every time that they, feed snacks to their kids, get that kind of feedback in a video kind of format. So mobile missions are dramatically, more important than they ever have been. And as we've seen things go from, 3G to 4G to 5G on cell phones and smartphones, and thank you, Steve Jobs. I think the smartphone or the Apple iPhone is going to be 12 this year. That has become a dramatic part of market research. Video capture, as you guys all know, is super hot and a big component on our platform. Next thing we do, and pursuant to all of the people on this webinar today, we do global research. So we're programmed for up to 30 different countries and languages at this point in time. And we can be in any given country that we don't have programmed already within just a couple of days. So we can handle translations, we can handle, recruiting if you need it. We can bring in moderators worldwide. So you guys just need to let us know on that, but we can handle global research as well. We understand GDPR, all the privacy rules across the world. So we are enabled and fully capable on the global side. The thing that really started out with was one of the biggest things we did with the platform was pre-focus group homework. And that simply is, maybe doing a store trip, maybe doing a projective exercise like a collage or a storytelling exercise before focus groups. And when I talk focus groups in this point, face-to-face will come back. But in, a couple months ago when everyone was doing face-to-face, focus group homework or pre-focus group homework is truly a supercharger for your groups. When you've got collages and storytelling exercises to review before groups start, things are really supercharged. People know what you're going to talk about. You've got collages to show from the people within that actual group. Your clients can actually see these things before the group starts and look at them during the groups. So again, it's a way to bring, asynchronous and live, together to kind of make it a supercharged effort. All right. And then innovation and new product development work. We do a ton of work with, regular agencies, but also innovation specialists to custom create activities. So there are a lot of people that did this face-to-face in the past, the innovation work. A lot of that was done, in person, obviously. And we're able to replicate a lot of the methods and even improve on those by weaving the tools together to get at whatever the insights you're looking to gather over that innovation process. A lot of these are iterative. So they may be, let's say, 3 weeks in length. You might do a couple of days online asynchronously, maybe a little bit of live. Then in week 2, you might come back. So you might take a little bit of break, retool some ideas, come back, represent those. And then in week 3, come back with final ideas, get some final feedback and collaboration, and voila, you're off to the races. And then finally, custom methodologies. Over the years, we've been really big on collaborating with our clients. And what that means is we have evolved the platform both without cost, where you might say, hey, I've got a great idea. Would you guys be interested in doing this for us? We're more than happy to do that. We're all ears on that stuff. Some of these are free, and some of these we have to charge a couple $1,000s to do a little custom code to make a method that is specific and custom to you. If you do paid in that approach, that becomes your method and no one else can use it, and it's on the platform and it is yours. You never have to repay for the creation of that methodology. Okay. So those are the top 10. And again, there are all kinds of combos that can happen and different ways of doing things, but that in essence is, the core of what we do. And probably about 80% of the studies we do fall into one of these 10 categories.
Hey, Ray, there's some questions popping up that a few of them we may want to address now.
Yeah, let me grab that. Yeah.
There's a question about analysis of video. I'll address that a little bit later on. I can share with you some tricks, or at least how we approach it at RealityCheck. And then there's also a question about the client experience. Yeah, totally get that. The overwhelming nature of how much information is coming through an online qual, and I can we'll address that a little bit later on in the presentation about how we deal with the client experience, because that's critical. But I do see, Ray, there's a question about, can you add your own images outside of the library to collage? And is the platform able to tally work in that case? I know I've added my own images, but I don't know if there's a tally feature that can work with that the same way that composite collage works with the AHA database.
Yep, absolutely. Great question. That comes up every time we do a demo. And obviously we didn't dive into all the capabilities around collage, but the beautiful thing about that is we've got 450 symbolic images in our library. You can bring us your library, so you can replace it. You can mix and match with ours. And the other really cool feature there is that respondents have the ability to upload their own. So in some cases, you may say, hey, make a collage of your life. Go grab, 5 photos from your photo file that kind of tell us who you are. And they can just drag and drop those into the canvas and create their own little collage that way. Or they can just go find images that we may have them, seek out on Google Images or on Getty Images. So they can go out and pick their own. So it can be yours, ours, theirs, mix, match of all the above.
But if you were doing analysis, Ray, if you're bringing your own images or the respondent is uploading their own, you would have to tally that yourself, correct?
Correct. What would happen is you would get, if it is client images or our images, those will be quantified because those are finite. We know what they are. When they go to respondent images, it's all going to be one-offs. So it'll be truly an emotional, it'll really be where the qualitative researcher brings their skill into analyzing those images.
Yeah. And let me just throw out one other question here, and then we'll move on. Does AHA have the ability to create a shelf set?
Yes.
To kind of get a sense of how people shop the aisle? And the answer is yes, because I know I've done it.
Yeah, anyone that has a lot of questions, at the end, we'll give you my email address. And I'd be happy to do a demo and take you really deep under the covers on this stuff because there's so much capability on that dynamic canvas. But the beauty of the dynamic canvas is you can actually upload a shelf set. And then we have manipulation tools, whether it's images or markup tools, where people can actually walk through that and tell you what they're thinking. In addition to that, we can use Zoom to self-record. So if you want someone to asynchronously go through a shelf set, tell you what they're thinking, and act as if they're in the store, we can record that on the platform as well. Okay, so it's sort of like almost a user experience study, but done more in a asynchronous fashion. Okay.
Yeah,
I did see a question.
So we'll try to get to those as we go through the presentation.
Yeah, I thought there was one other cool one from Faith here with video. Suggestion for analyzing video. Faith, the idea there is, you got a couple of ways to do it. One, you probably should watch the video, and I know there's a lot of it. But again, in qual studies, you don't have that many people, and if you don't ask for that much video, you should be okay. The cool thing is you do get transcripts, whether they're machine learning or human transcripts. Sometimes it's easier to go through it that way. But the cool thing on the platform is if you do look at the video, it does give you the transcript in tandem next to the video. You can actually highlight the quotes and create your little highlight reel on the back end of the platform. Okay. All right. Enough questions for the moment.
Actually, right, if you go back a slide, you can show that on that.
Yep, right here. So if I wanted to grab you guys a highlight reel, so Faith, to your question, if I just go and highlight all these words here, I can just click a little button that sends that over to my video maker. And then you can kind of move these things in and out, reorder them, et cetera, and create a little highlight reel. And they can be thematically directed as well. So you can have multiple videos supporting the themes that you see emerging within your analysis of the study. Okay, and there's one other one. Do we want to cover that one, Jim? Group session?
I'll talk about the client engagement a little bit later.
Cool. All right, let's do that. Oh. Little jumpy finger there. All right, so on this one here, we realized jumping into online qual for the first time, it can be a little scary. A big thing I like to say, and I still say it, is, if you're a first timer, it'd be like jumping out of an airplane and going like, okay, here we go. Now that would be pretty scary, and not a lot of people are going to do that. So at the beginning of online qual, we're very service oriented. Other platforms probably are as well. You definitely want a guide. So imagine that's me, tagged onto the back of you, and we jump out of the plane and we go through this experience together. We're going to take the experience of thousands of studies and make sure yours is great. So, no matter what kind of study you're doing, you're taking a leap of faith. And as you know, there is no room for failure with your clients. We'll make sure it is so. So that's why we always tell folks to work with an online qual partner to develop a study design that takes advantage of all the different types of activities and features that are out there today and you may not be aware of. So, getting a guided approach through that is certainly important. Okay, on this next page here, what we want to do is talk, I hate to talk about failure per se, but this is really about success. This is how studies are run well. The rumors, the early issues with online was really, in this problem section, and the ways that those are resolved are over there in the solutions area. Okay. So one of the bigger problems that people had in the beginning was onboarding and no-shows. Invitations get lost in spam, people aren't paying attention, et cetera. One of the things we learned early on, it's not just, hey, recruiter, can you get us 40 people for this study? It's like, hey, recruiter, this is a 40-person study, and we need your help to make sure these people stay engaged throughout the process, in particular on the onboarding side. So recruiter engagement is critical to that. You want to make sure that we have tools on our platform. Others probably have them too, but you want to make sure that the recruiter is engaged so that if the respondents aren't on board, when you need them on board, they're reaching out and getting people to start. That is the main thing. You do not want people to fall behind. Another big issue early on in online qual, and I'm talking 5, 10, 15 years ago, was weak participation. People used to be happy with 50% participation. That's garbage for me. It has to be 90% plus. That's our goal every time. 80% plus is good. And we always over recruit by about 20%, which is kind of a standard old school focus group, metric. But our goal is definitely, anything under 80 is terrible. But we shoot for 90 plus, and we often get 100% participation of the people recruited to our studies who do a great job and do everything on time and all the way through. So 90% plus is the goal here. And then people fall behind. And we'll talk a little bit about the human connection and how we can help that. But the key thing there is you want to make sure that whatever qual partner you do choose has project managers assigned to you that look at your study a couple times a day at least, and kind of see if there's any issues and help you troubleshoot how to fix those. And usually within platforms, there's communication tools to help herd the cats along and keep people moving, in sync. Okay.
Yeah, one of the biggest, failures that I hear, particularly with clients who have tried online qualitative and not had a positive experience, is they just don't feel like they're getting the depth of responses from respondents that they would in face-to-face qualitative, some superficial responses. And I would say we've learned over the years to address that in two ways. One is, first of all, you want to set expectations with respondents at the front end. Make sure when they're recruited and when they start the study and throughout the study, here's what's expected of you. Here's what we're going to be asking you to do. Here's the time commitment that we're going to need. So you don't end up with people in the study who are surprised by how much participation you're requiring for them. But then probably the most important thing is just be creative. And again, understand the full palette of digital activities and tasks that are available to you. And think through, how do I make this engaging for the respondents? How do I make it fun? You don't want to make it feel like a test. You want to make it feel more like either social media, or you want to gamify activities as much as you can, or just allow them to express something about their lives that's interesting to them, and be creative with your study design. You know, we've talked about this before, and it's come up. I think it came up with that video question. Too much unstructured data is also something that a lot of times causes projects to fail. People don't think through when they're designing studies how they're going to deal with an overwhelming amount of unstructured data, like video or digital collages, or, you know, lengthy narrative text when they do analysis. And it's just critical, I think, more so in online qualitative than face-to-face, to think about the end. How am I going to analyze this? Every task, activity, question you include in your design should have an analysis plan to it. So if you're doing video, for instance, and having people upload videos, you should be thinking about, now, how am I going to analyze this on the back end? Am I going to do a keyword search of transcripts? If I've got 70 respondents in a study, maybe I should put a time restraint on how long their videos can be, or maybe I should think of some other way to get at this other than video. So your the end analysis should inform how you design your studies as well. And then finally, we've talked about this a little bit, poor client team experience. Again, there, it's critical to set expectations of how this is going to be and plan for the client team experience. Work with the online qualitative vendor that you're dealing with and understand, what are the options to engage my client team here, my brand team? What can we do? Some of the things that I do, AHA has a nice feature called the news feed, where moderators can put curated content into it, so the brand team doesn't have to look at everything. They can just look at the news feed. And that can be looked at on their mobile devices or on online on a computer. Sometimes we'll have brand teams just assigned to 2, 3, or 4 respondents, and they'll follow those respondents through a study. So they don't have to look at everybody. And then critical, I think, oftentimes is having sort of touch point debriefs during field work. So the client team has an opportunity to talk about what they're seeing and share those experiences with the rest of the team. So, but the key here is just to plan for it. And if you do that, it's more likely that they're going to have a positive experience throughout field work.
Great points, Jim. All right, now let me take you over to the 101. All right, I wish it was Highway 101 and I was down south, because the snow is not making me happy today. What we're going to cover right now is really the best practice stuff around how to put together and run a great study. So this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to dive into, you know, what I think, and Jim and I think, are the top 5 things you need to address and understand to really make an online study hum. If you just send respondents to a platform and say, go get it, it's not going to work really well. So we're going to show you the ways to optimize an online study. Okay. The first and foremost to this is clear objectives. What you have to do is make sure everybody understands what it is that they're supposed to do. And there's a couple ways to do that. And it actually starts at the screener. That screener, when your recruiter goes through and recruits people, has to include exactly what people are going to do. Not what the study is actually going to get on the granular level, what they're going to do, but they need to know, like, hey, this is 4 days. This is 30 minutes a day at least. You're going to be uploading video. You're going to be writing stories. You're going to be involved in doing some, you know, fun stuff, but it's going to be deep and engaging, and we need you to settle down and sit down and do some of this stuff. Some things are mobile. Some are more appropriate for desktop or laptop. So depending on what you're doing, we can advise you as to what devices should be acceptable and what devices we should block. Okay. So they need to know what's happening. So there needs to be clear objectives from the client side as well. So when the researcher and the client get together, you have to have very clear objectives. Okay. One thing that's really important, we learned this a long time ago, and we've gotten really good at managing this or conveying the importance of it, and that is stick to your mission. Do not let the activity guide become a free-for-all. If it becomes a committee approach, You may be sitting in a conference room and all of a sudden everybody with any question they ever wanted to ask wants to get that into that study. That is not a good way to go. These things are really, again, like a tapestry. You want to weave things together that is strategically appropriate for what the objectives are of the brand. Okay. So you want to develop activities that are both pragmatic and projective. So there's going to be times when you have to ask open ends and to do keyhole kind of measures, as Jim will explain. You need to do closed ends as well. Those are super helpful, but the meat is really in things like store trips and, tours of the pantry and projective exercises like collage and storytelling that are more deeply engaging and actually really fun for respondents. You hit them with a quote unquote qualitative survey and you just give them open-ended questions, they're going to die on the vine and they're going to race to get through this thing. What we love is at the end of studies, we get notes back from people saying, that was so much fun. How do we get involved in more research with you guys? We love doing this stuff. Now, we can't take repeat people all the time, but you get the idea. They love it. They want to come back. They want to do more. And they want to do that every single day. And that's how we do get that 90% plus participation on average. Okay, the recruiting side, super, super important. There's a million recruiters out there. And, you truly, for online studies, online qual studies, I highly recommend using a qual-specific recruiter. If it's quant qual, you can often use quant sample to bring people in and kind of screen them over that way. But, there are different sample sources and you've got to choose wisely. I highly recommend qualitative recruiters, people that recruit for focus groups. And I know I've got a bunch of my qual partners out there right now, recruiting partners listening to this today. They're awesome. There's great ones out there. They know how to recruit to online studies. So choose wisely in that regard. As I said earlier, make it clear what's expected of respondents, engagement time each day, what they're supposed to do. The incentive is super important. Don't be cheap. 3-day studies, regular Gen Pop consumers, generally $100. If you really want to make them happy, throw 125 at them. It might cost you 5 or 6, wouldn't you know, my Google phone goes off. So what you want to do is incent them accordingly and don't be cheap. So going up with $25 per respondent can certainly be, a big boon to their engagement and make them a little bit happier. The other thing, stick to the schedule or you'll lose respondents. I've had early on, 15 years ago, we'd get clients that would actually say, hey, let's do some. And 2 days later, like, hey, let's take a time out. We want to retool on day 3. You don't want to do that. You can make some tweaks, but you never want to skip a day if you planned on, unless it's an emergency, you stay with the schedule. So if you've got a 4-day study, it's bang, 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 okay? Or you'll lose respondents. Again, they're expecting you to be ready at 6 a.m. every day. If they're up and ready to go, that activity needs to be launched. And engage your recruiter. They have to invest in this success. If they tell you, hey, here's the people, good luck, run away in the other direction. You want somebody who's going to actually be actively involved. We've got tools. I'm sure my competitors have tools that track progress each and every day. So make sure the recruiter is engaged, is checking in on the progress, and is nurturing people along if they have fallen behind. Okay, creativity. You want to do something different each day. Excuse me real quick here. I just want to make sure I'm not riding over Jim's work here, but creativity. So you want to do something different each Yeah, you want to do something different each day. I wasn't sure if you were going to grab this one. So so do something different each day if possible. In a concept test, you're going to be doing concept testing. But if it is a digital ethno or a customer experience study or a home use test, you have the ability to do different things. So mix it up. It makes it fresh, exciting, and interesting for your respondents. And sprinkle in those projective techniques, collage, dynamic canvas, storytelling. Those are super fun. And then another element that really even increases engagement more is go beyond the one-on-one stuff like the collage and the storytelling and the open ends and do social activities, the social media type exercises that I mentioned earlier. That lets people interact with the other people in the study. It's super fun for them. It's usually really insightful for you. And it kind of, again, just layers in a little element of supercharging to the whole initiative. And one important thing to remember, do not overload them, okay? If you have set on an incentive and you've told them it's going to be about 30 minutes a day, don't push much past that. Some people will give you 50 minutes just because they're so into it, but you don't want to kill them where you say it's going to be 30 minutes and it's really going to take an hour to get through the work. So be very careful and cognizant of that.
Yeah, I think the creativity piece is important, but you're right, Ray. You don't want to overload people. So I always think about how can I make activities fun and interesting, but also simple. Simple, not only easy to understand for them, but also easy to analyze for me. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. I mean, if you're after emotional drivers, instead of just having people describe how they feel, again, have them upload a projective image, you know, similar to what you might do in a face-to-face setting. You can do that digitally. You can do it really well. And as we've talked about, if you're using a high image library or a library that you curate yourself, the platform will quantify that stuff, which is great. So you don't have to do the analysis by hand. You know, instead of asking people to describe something about their homes or their refrigerators or their pantry, you know, have them give you a little video tour. I mean, that sort of thing is increasingly easier for respondents because all they have to do is shoot a little video on their smartphones, which everybody can do these days just about. And it brings it to life a little bit more for you. So it's more engaging. And there's just a million things you can do. You know, one of the things that we do oftentimes to get deeper answers on storytelling activities is to not just have people tell us or describe a brand experience or a shopping experience, but we'll ask them to write it as if they were writing a screenplay. Again, kind of a standard qualitative technique, but it works really well in the digital setting because people can take the time to really get into it. We don't ask them to write chapter and verse, but we do ask them to talk about the emotion, the plot, the moral that they've learned from the story. And you really get a depth of learning by just applying a little bit of creativity to these assignments that makes use of the digital technology in an interesting way.
Jim, that brings up a good point about the video too. I mean, this whole COVID environment we're in has made people so much more video friendly. You know, everybody's having cocktail parties on Zoom. Everybody's communicating via FaceTime. So that familiarity and comfort level of being on camera has driven remarkably over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, that genie's not going back in the bottle. That's
exactly. So everyone's gotten comfortable with it. They understand the tools. I mean, it's just amazing how ubiquitous, you know, video is to everybody and the usage of it. And again, it's really increased and spiked over the last 6 weeks. So that is another benefit to the online qual side. All right, the human touch. This is incredibly important. You know, this whole online world is technology. That's what it is. And technology can be considered cold, but all these elements that allow us to humanize it are totally available and embedded in the online qual environment. And if you look over here to this right side, this is a moderator that uses our platform all of the time. And what she started doing a few years back, several years ago actually, was creating intro videos. So when a respondent logs into the study, the first thing they see is the video from the moderator. And it's very personal. It's like, hey, you know, I'm Johanna, and this is what I'm going to do, you know, over the next few days with you. My responsibilities are X, Y, Z, and this is what I need you to do. And she'll probably share a little bit about herself too as a human being. So they're usually very casual and friendly. They can be honestly super funny. I've had clients who've just absolutely been a stitch, you know, introducing things and getting a comfort level with their respondents. And then another cool tactic once that happens is then to say, okay, that's me. Now flip on your webcam and do an asynchronous recording of who you are and kind of play back the same thing. So it creates this relationship right out of the box that humanizes the study and the platform. The next thing that is really super important, so you got this welcoming and onboarding and making people feel comfortable. The next thing that's super important is the first day, like moderator probes. Anything that's submitted to the platform can be probed on. And the beautiful thing in day one in the study is I think it's mandatory, is the moderator needs to go through. And again, you don't have 2,000 respondents, and there is some automation to this as well, but a little probe. So if you say, hey, tell me about your family, and they put a picture of their family up like you see over here, you know, the probe might be, oh, awesome looking family, Anthony. I'm really thankful for sharing. I can't wait to hear what you have to say over the next few days. So now, you know, they know there's somebody behind the curtain actively reading the responses, which is going to increase that engagement level and that friendliness between moderator and respondent. The other thing that's super, super important is these daily notes right here. So every morning there's communication tools where the moderator actually just sends a note over coffee in the morning that says, hey, good morning. Great job so far. If you fell behind, you know, let's pick up the pace. If you need any help on anything, let me know. But here's what we're going to do today. So they kind of get this, wow, this person's super managing this study. I'm really important to them. They really want to know more about me. So people really give you that human connection. So the daily morning notes are critical. And then probes throughout are not mandatory, but it definitely helps you get a little bit more depth where you want to go.
Yeah. I think this piece is really critical because, I've been doing qualitative research for more than 20 years, and I take a very sort of psychological approach to what I'm doing. And I feel like the more you share about yourself, the more people understand that it's okay to share back to you. And I'll certainly do that in a face-to-face setting, whether I'm doing an IDI or a group or an ethno. But you can also do that in a digital space. Just because it's online doesn't mean you can't share a part of yourself. So I love doing the intro videos. I also will do videos to introduce activities. Sometimes what we're asking people to do, if it's a projective technique, may seem a little strange to respondents. So I'll have written instructions that they can access, but also upload a little video and say, hey, look, I know what I'm asking you today to do today is a little bit strange, maybe not what you expected, but here's why I'm doing it. And here's how to really put yourself into it. And then just personalizing things. I know, I was doing a study last year on the college selection process. It was a CX decision journey study in which we had college juniors or high school juniors and their parents keeping an online diary of basically every touch point when they were making a decision about a college. Well, I actually had a high school junior at the time. He's since picked a college, so that's great. We're very happy. Hopefully they'll be on campus next fall. But when I was doing the selfie video for this, I grabbed him, pulled my son Alex into the webcam shot and said, hey, I'm going through the same thing you all are. And I'm really curious what you have to tell me. This is my son Alex. He introduced himself, and it just really helped provide some warmth around the whole study. And we got some great stuff. So yeah, it's absolutely critical. So thanks for bringing that up, Ray.
Yeah, and Jim, that was one of the coolest little intros, and the reluctant Alex in there,
Hey, I'm not sure how much he appreciated it because it was kind of spur of the moment, but yeah.
He looked like the typical high school junior in there, Oh man, what do I need to do, Dad? All right, next. Jim, you there?
Yeah. So this final one, and then we'll move on to just kind of a wrap up and some questions. We've talked about this a little bit before, but designing with the end in mind is critical. And I want to skip down to that third bullet point. We had some questions about how to analyze video, how to analyze collages, this unstructured data that we get. One of the things we talk about at RealityCheck and encourage all of our consultants to do is to think about what we call keyhole measures. And the reason why we call them that, they're things that we put into the study design to quote unquote unlock the data. And it might be one activity or really one task or a couple of questions that you embed in the study, and you're going to go there first. For me, these tend to be things that I can quantify. And oftentimes they don't end up being something I'll even report. But I know that when the study's done, these are the one or two measures I'm going to go to first. They're tightly connected to the study objectives. So it might be, if it's a concept test, it might be on the very last activity where I ask respondents to choose one of these concepts that does the best job of connecting with them, or they would have the most purchase interest in, or something like that. And I know I'm going to go to that measure first. If it's a digital collage, I may know that my keyhole is going to be, all right, out of all the images that people used, what are the 5 that are the most frequently selected, and how do those 5 choices vary across segments or subgroups like users or non-users? It's a much better approach to think through that analytical framework and to have a couple of measures in mind than to do what I know a lot of folks in our business do, which is start reading the online data respondent by respondent. And I would just encourage you, if you're doing that, it's time consuming and you're probably going to miss things. There's a better, more planned and thoughtful way to analyze online qualitative data. And it's by thinking a little bit more quantitatively, identifying those keyhole measures, and knowing you're going to go to them to provide some structure and analytical framework for the data. Other measures like that, the video text that provide richness then can be used as sort of supporting measures to bring the story that you're telling to life. But think about those keyhole measures on the front end, and you'll save yourself a lot of time, and you'll also have a better analysis. So just some thoughts about designing with the end in mind. So that's basically the show. Ray, you want to wrap up with a few final thoughts?
Yeah. And, Jim is a power user, and, he has his own way of breaking down data, and everyone approaches it a little bit differently. There are tools on the platform and on any platform to do some of the data analysis. There's filters, there is tagging and organizing, so you can kind of stage thematic contributions in folders so that you can easily write your report and grab things that support your themes. So those things are eminently available to you there. And we even export some old school, I shouldn't say old school people, but people that like Excel and are expert in Excel like to get the formatted exports that we have that have images, words, transcripts from video, links to video, all that stuff within the context of a very cleanly formatted Excel document. So you can do your analysis on the platform or off the platform or a combination thereof. All right, so let's go to our final slide here. So in summary, there are so many opportunities to deploy online qual. I literally feel that I can help you craft and you can craft yourself an approach that can be done online that perhaps is better than face-to-face, and oftentimes is. So there are a ton of opportunities to deploy online qual. These approaches that we showed you can be standalone, or you can mix methods all over. So it could be face-to-face, could be online face-to-face, and asynchronous. So you've got all kinds of mix and match possibilities. Respondent connection will continue to improve. I mentioned, 4G to 5G. That's going to make smartphone connectivity, which we've already taken advantage of 4G in a big way. Our mobile activities are not done via apps. They're actually pushed straight through text to smartphones. So it's an amazing way to gather video and mobile initiatives or mobile feedback. So tech will evolve. We're seeing Zoom, Zoom wasn't here a couple of years ago, and now it's a primary tool that people use in business. And we fortuitously, again, have it embedded into the platform. Be confident and creative with new approaches. Be comfortable. Know that your provider should be able to help you steer through any newness to this. And those who are experienced, hey, take a gamble on new approaches. There's oftentimes you have opportunities within multi-day studies to try something new, and it could be a throwaway or it could be liquid gold. And then most importantly, brainstorm with your online qual partner. They should be available to you to do that. We kick off almost every study that I do, particularly with my newer clients, but even my more experienced clients. We kick off with okay, here's the study objectives, what would you do? And we create what I call a skeleton. And then often we either write the activity guide or the consultant goes back and puts the meat on the bones. So there should be a partnership approach to this that makes it all, work.
Yeah, it sounds great, Ray. Why don't we spend some time answering some questions?
Absolutely. Let's see, we got a few down here. All right, let's see. David from North Carolina, we know you. David says, at the end or maybe offline, what is the best way to share info during the course of a study with a client? Many clients find it overwhelming and so much info in the spreadsheets. Jim, to the newsfeed, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, Dave, how you doing? So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of things that we do to engage clients. One is use the newsfeed, and again, that's a function where you can have your moderators dropping in curated content, appending some notes or comments to that content. So it might be, a collage that a respondent has done that you think is particularly insightful, or an answer to a question, or a composite of ratings or something like that. And the client team can access that either through by logging into the platform on the computers, or we can send them a text message, SMS text, and they can access it from their phone, and it looks kind of like a social media news feed. And whenever that's updated, they can just kind of scroll through it and get a sense of what's going on without having to go in and read all the data. That's one thing we do. Another thing that's really popular with brand teams is, if you've got a group of brand managers or brand director, you assign them to follow only a handful of respondents through the study. So we may have 30 or 40 people in the study, but we may give, each member of the brand team 3, 4, or 5 people, human beings, that they're going to get to know and follow through the study. And then again, scheduling those touch point calls so that we can touch base with the brand team as the project goes along and talk about what everybody's seeing is pretty cool, pretty critical to that.
All right. So we're kind of bumping up against it. Do we want to take another question or two, Jim?
Yeah,
okay. Let's see. Eleanor, since we use Zoom, can the moderator host synchronous group sessions to discuss, for example, their own collages and why they included the images they did? Absolutely. That almost can be more effective in a one-on-one IDI, but you certainly can pull up whatever they've done, do the screen share, and have them walk you through it. The other thing that happens too often is respondents will actually do the collage while the moderator's watching. And again, those are best in an IDI type format. So they might pick images, the moderator just watches and maybe interjects a question or two where appropriate to kind of understand the motivations behind picking the different images.
We're getting a couple of questions about my point about keyhole measures, and I can just respond to the group. I mean, if you're doing a study where you have a small number of respondents, maybe 10 to 20, or you just have one activity, or you're just doing a series of maybe 8 to 10 streaming IDIs, then I think that respondent by respondent analysis, you can get away with that. But what I'm talking about, and what I've learned over the years, that if you've got a 5-activity study with 40 or 60 or 80 respondents, and your plan for analysis is, I'm going to read all of that respondent by respondent and just sort of see what emerges, you're in for a nightmare. It's going to take you a ton of time. And again, my concern with that is I'm going to miss something critical. I'm going to be mired in the forest or mired in the trees, and I'm not going to see the forest. So when I've got a sizable number of respondents and activities and all of that unstructured data, I have to think about how I'm going to analyze this on the backside. And the way for me to do it is, again, to identify 1 or 2 or 3 tasks or measures that are really going to provide for me a way in. And I know I'm going to go there first, and they're going to provide a much more structured way for me to go through the data than that sort of respondent by respondent approach. So I hope that answers the question from folks out there.
And hello, Mark from sunny California. Good to see you on the. Yes, he's a client and friend. All right, so I see a few thank yous on here, and you're welcome, and we really appreciate you guys being here. So to wrap things up, this is Jim and Ray. Okay, we didn't use our video cams today, but that's us. On the left side is Ray, and I run AHA. You'd reach out to me in situations where you're the consultant or you're a DIY corporate person who wants to engage directly with the platform. So you see my contact information there. Over on the right side is Jim, and Jim runs RealityCheck with Jim Chastain, and what he is a consultant. So corporate clients or anybody would need full service approach, meaning a client or a consultant to refine the objectives, design the activity guide, run the study, moderate, do the report in a full service way. That would be Jim. And if he does any online stuff, I would bet 100% that he will do it on our platform. So you'll get the best of both worlds there.
And if you have a question for either one of us that hasn't been answered, because we're at time here, feel free to shoot us an email and we can answer that question directly. So yeah, so let us know if you've got a pressing issue we haven't been able to address.
Yep, and Cheryl, I saw your note there, and I'll reach out to you after this afternoon just to figure out what we can do there. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Stay safe out there. Hopefully, we're coming close to getting out of lockdown, and life will go sort of back to normal. But in this, new paradigm, things will probably be a little bit different going forward. So we're here to help.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again for being here.